question I get more than any other question from urban buyers, especially people coming from the Bay Area, is not which town is best for me to move to, but instead it's, am I gonna lose all of the features and benefits of my current neighborhood when I move to Sonoma County? And the answer depends on where you're coming from and where you think you're headed. And so today's video is all about helping you discern between the top 5 towns in Sonoma County, which one is the best match for you based on where you might be living or the neighborhood in the Bay Area you feel most connected to. So let's get started. I'm Stephanie Johnson. I'm your RealWise agent here in Sonoma County. And this is Sonoma County's top 5 towns based on the vibe you most want to keep. The first match I'll make is actually probably the closest match in terms of where you're coming from and where you're going. And that is if you live in Marin's Ross Valley. You like to stroll to the Ross Common, get a cup of coffee on a Saturday. You love an outdoorsy hike and then maybe lunch out with friends, or substitute a cycling trip in the morning and brunch or lunch out with friends. And that's been your lifestyle that you love and don't want to lose, then the town of Sonoma is going to be the match for you. So let's first talk about what you keep when you're coming from Marin's Ross Valley and you move to Sonoma. You keep really your shopping district, right? Your little downtown with darling shops and coffee shops and brunch places. That energy remains. The beautiful thing about Sonoma is there's this charming central plaza, right? And around it are coffee shops and abundant bakeries and restaurants and lovely boutiques. And so you're going to have that in spades in Sonoma. And so if you're the person who you love living in the outdoors and you love spending your weekends strolling the downtown, getting a coffee, getting brunch, and just hanging out with friends and family and having the vibe be really chill, Sonoma's the place for you. And I've touched on it, but Sonoma really gives you the chance to hold on to the best part of your outdoorsy lifestyle. If you're a hiker, if you're a cyclist, there are a number of places you can go really close to town. It makes it really easy to keep that energy in your life. And the energy between these two places feels similar in the way that it's got a preciousness and a sweetness to it that is not really edgy at all. You're not going to have to give up the polish of the Ross Valley to go to Sonoma. In fact, Sonoma has just as much polish and panache as anything you'll find in those areas. I will say what shifts is you do not have nearly the access in Sonoma to amenities and facilities that you're gonna have in Marin. For instance, hospitals are very few and far between, and if access to a big hospital and major medical resources is something that's important to you, Sonoma may not be the move for you. There is a small hospital in town, the Sonoma Valley Hospital, but other than that, in order to get access to anything else, you would need to get into the town of Napa or into Petaluma or Northern Marin. And that's kind of a haul. If you're having to go to doctor's appointments and you have a health concern that you need to manage, this may not be the place for you to land. In addition, while Sonoma has a ton of shopping, boutique shopping, local retailers, there is no big box shopping in or anywhere near the town of Sonoma. No Target, no Costco, no outlets. So if that's something that's a part of your weekly routine, your reality, you're gonna be traveling far and wide into Petaluma, into Napa to get those needs met. The other thing that shifts is you move from Ross Valley, where it's much more densely populated and there's a rhythm and an expectation that every weekend's gonna feel similar, right? Unless there's some kind of festival happening. Whereas in Sonoma, you move to a pure tourist town. And so there's a season where it's gonna be very busy, hard to park downtown, and that's gonna be maybe May through the end of grape harvest. And you'll have to deal with that and adjust to the rhythm of a tourist town and its energy. Because when the tourists are not there, Sonoma gets very, very, very quiet. And I would say if you're not really into it feeling very, very, very quiet, Sonoma could be a little isolated for you. It's surprising sometimes when people come from parts of the Bay Area where they have an expectation that there's just all the things they need within close proximity. And that is not the case in many areas of Sonoma County. And so you have to be thoughtful about the resources you need access to and choose your area to land accordingly. But if you love Marin for the slowness and the outdoorsiness and the sort of bougie energy, you're gonna love the town of Sonoma. As far as price goes, the Sonoma median price in June came in at about $1.25 million. And that's quite a bit higher than the median price countywide, which hovers around $850. And you're gonna see as we get through this list that every town I'm gonna touch on today, with the exception of one, comes in quite a bit higher than median price countywide. And that's because these areas are really desirable, right? And they do attract buyers from areas where property values are even higher than we have in Sonoma County. And so it's not a huge sticker shock. In fact, if you're coming from the Ross Valley, chances are Sonoma is going to feel pretty affordable to you. Okay, so moving on. If instead you love visiting North Santa Cruz Avenue in Los Gatos or Upper Fillmore in San Francisco's Pacific Heights district, your match is going to be a little different. If you love these areas, my guess is you love fine dining, you love high-end boutique shopping, and you like to enjoy a level of polish and sophistication that is rare. If that's the case, then your match in Sonoma County is absolutely Healdsburg. So if you're moving from those areas into Healdsburg, here's what you keep. Genuinely excellent restaurants. Healdsburg per capita has more restaurants than I think any town in our county, and many of them are recognized by Michelin, and there is just ample choices for a foodie in Healdsburg. You also keep a tremendous wine list, right? I didn't talk about it in Sonoma, but both of these towns are the wine capitals of our county. And so in Healdsburg, you're going to have access to wonderful wine lists in every restaurant. They're going to be focused on regional wines and highlight the producers in our beautiful area of Sonoma County. And you will be in heaven if you're a wine lover. Downtown Los Gatos and Upper Fillmore in the city, both are highly amenitized, right? They feel a little bit like a little European town. And that's kind of what you get when you go to Healdsburg. In my opinion, Healdsburg's shopping is even better than the town of Sonoma. I might get some comments on that, but that's how I feel when I go there. There's some really beautiful boutiques in Healdsburg worth checking out, especially if you love shopping in these other two areas. So what shifts when you move from one of these areas into Healdsburg? And I'll say, Los Gatos in particular is a place that people just live every day, right? It's not a huge tourist destination. The downtown is really filled with people who live in town or in an adjacent area, and they come there to brunch and dine and shop. Healdsburg is totally different. Healdsburg, like Sonoma, is one of the biggest tourist draws in our county. Also because of the wine industry, there is tremendous tourist traffic. There are some very high-end hotels and experiences in Healdsburg. I just had dinner at Hazel Hill and Montage, which is a gorgeous place, very high-end. So Healdsburg attracts a very Tony crowd, and in the summer, they're descending on Healdsburg, drinking wine, eating food, and parking in your parking spaces. And so be forewarned that you're moving into a tourist area. And you have to be able to live in that rhythm, right? There's going to be a tourist season and you have to know how to navigate that. And then there's a slower season, and then it's mostly just locals. You're going to compete for parking in the summer in Healdsburg. You're going to compete for dinner reservations on weekends, especially wine event weekends. And it's going to feel a little overwhelming downtown at certain times of the year. If you're coming from San Francisco, of course, you have more familiarity with density. The tourist season may not even bother you because you're used to tourists coming to your neighborhood all the time, all year round, and San Francisco is already a pretty dense place. And so that may be less of a shock. Healdsburg is more expensive in terms of median price than Sonoma. So the median price in Healdsburg in June came in at $1.3 million. And homes in both of these areas can get expensive very quickly. Compare that to the median of $850. And of course, Healdsburg is one of the more desirable locations in our county to land. And because it's a match for people who live in already pretty expensive areas, that does not feel like a big reach for someone coming from Pacific Heights. In summer, Healdsburg is an area to land if you want to keep your high-end neighborhoods polish and sophistication, and you want to dial up your wine country lifestyle. Okay, if Oakland is home base for you and you're considering a move into Sonoma County, you're coming from a place that's really big, right? It's dense, it's urban feeling, a lot of different cultures coming together, a lot of different kinds of cuisine within probably walking distance of your home. And if Oakland's edge and sort of hipness is what you want to keep, and you want to keep your access to multiple different kinds of cuisines from all over the world, then Santa Rosa is absolutely your match. Santa Rosa is the biggest city in Sonoma County. And because of that, it's chock full of amenities, and it's a size and scale that someone coming from Oakland wouldn't feel like they fell off the face of the earth. It also contains the most amenities in this way. And so if you have medical needs, if you're retiring up here, for instance, and you definitely want to have access to a hospital, then being in or near Santa Rosa is probably a good choice for you. It also has an airport, just like Oakland does, with direct flights to many, many Western cities. The flight options from Santa Rosa continue to improve. We keep getting more airlines. and more routes planned out of that airport, and so it's getting better every month. We have malls and many diverse shopping options in Santa Rosa. And as I said, the restaurant scene is culturally very rich. You'll find everything from Ethiopian food, Filipino restaurants. There's even a traditional Jewish deli right downtown. And the neighborhoods in Santa Rosa vary wildly in terms of energy and character, the same way they do in Oakland. So what shifts? Well, while Santa Rosa is a city in Sonoma County, it is definitely a lot smaller than Oakland and a lot less dense. And if you're coming from Oakland and you're hoping for a little wine country flavor, Santa Rosa is probably the place you'll get the least of it in our county. It definitely feels more urban. It feels more suburban in the surrounding areas. You're not going to drive through vineyards going from your Santa Rosa house to your Santa Rosa job. It's very unlikely. And it also doesn't really have the bay and hills character that Oakland has, right? It's a vibe of its own, but it does offer some of the energy that an Oaklander would find appealing. And I will say, as price goes, Santa Rosa is certainly the most affordable on our list. While there are parts of Santa Rosa that get more and less expensive, the median price in Santa Rosa came in under the county's median price. In June, it was $754,000. So you can do a lot, right? You can get a lot of house for the money in Santa Rosa, and depending on the neighborhood you land in, you'll get more or less square footage for that price. There are neighborhoods in the north of Santa Rosa where you can spend more money. And if you're interested in talking through your goals and what might be a vibe for you, and you want to talk about details in terms of pricing and neighborhoods in any of these parts of the county, please reach out to me. My contact information is on this page in a couple places. You can book a call with me, DM me, or just pick up the phone. If you want to come to Sonoma County and slow down a bit and lose some of the density, but you're not ready to give up big city infrastructure, then Santa Rosa is a good fit for you. Just don't expect it to look like Oakland. Okay, this one's personal because it's where I live. If you're coming from Berkeley, for instance, and you really like the, let's call it metaphysical energy of Berkeley, you like the holdover of the hippie vibe, you like a progressive town, you want a place that feels very salt of the earth, but also offers a little bit of bouginess in terms of food and sort of farm to table culture. Or if you live in the city in a place sort of Bernal Heights-esque, I think Sebastopol is probably a fit for you. Both Berkeley and Bernal Heights and surrounds have an edge to them. They're pretty progressive, and yet they're expensive and sort of fancy in a way that feels very unfussy. And I feel that way about Sebastopol. Sebastopol is all about neighborhood coffee shops and the independent bookseller and the crystal shop on the corner, a beautiful farm-to-table brunch place, and it's genuinely quirky and artsy in the same way that these other two areas in the Bay Area are. It's a close match with a couple of very important exceptions. You keep the artsy creative vibe, you keep a largely progressive vibe, although no place is a monolith, right? Of course, Sebastopol has lots of different people in it, but the vibe has a holdover from the hippie era when there were a lot of communes here, and so that's sort of still cherished in Sebastopol. Farm to table culture, I mean, Chez Panisse could easily open an outpost in Sebastopol and do very well for itself. But there's also a little bougie in Sebastopol, right? The Barlow is a fancy market area where there's restaurants and shopping and open air markets once a month, cider makers and beer halls and cheese makers and wine tasting shops. I mean, the Barlow is a very fancy annex in Sebastopol that the locals who've been here for generations don't spend a ton of time in, but people who've relocated here certainly do. What shifts is absolutely the scale. So Berkeley is a city, right? It's a big city. And there are a lot of people that live there and it feels very dense. Bernal Heights is one of the most densely and sort of tightly built neighborhoods in San Francisco. Sebastopol is the opposite. There's only 7,500 people that live in the town of Sebastopol, and the surrounds are developed on lots of 1 or 2 acres apiece often. So the density is way different. It's definitely a very small rural town, and you're gonna have a lot more rural lifestyle here than you would in either of the 2 places you'd be coming from. And Berkeley and Bernal Heights both have access to nightlife and sort of some city energy. You will not have that here. Sebastopol shuts down pretty early. There are a couple of bars in town that stay open later, but it's pretty quiet. Berkeley's got several commercial strips. Bernal has 2, and it's even a small neighborhood. And Sebastopol's downtown is like 3 blocks long. So that's the comparison you want to make, and make sure you're cool, shrinking the energy, because it's going to change a lot if you move here. Sebastopol's median price in June was 1.1, down a little bit from earlier in the year where we hit 1.2 million. It hovers right between those 2 numbers month to month. And compare that to the median price countywide, and of course Sebastopol is also a desirable and more expensive part of our county. But if you want the vibe of Berkeley and Bernal but not the density, this is the town for you. Okay, this is a fun one. If you live in Alameda or you love Alameda, right? There's a historic downtown, right? The housing stock has a lot of Victorians and old world charm. It's not precious. It has a waterfront lifestyle and an easy commute via ferry, albeit from Alameda to the city. Then Petaluma is a great match for you. And here's why. Well, first, Petaluma fronts the Petaluma River. There's definitely a dining in front of the river, hanging out on the river vibe in Petaluma that kind of mirrors Alameda's bayfront lifestyle. And if you have to commute into the city and you're used to that easy ferry ride, in Petaluma you can also take the ferry. You just have to add a little smart train trip down from Petaluma to Larkspur to catch it. The downtown in Petaluma is one of the most historic and I think most beautiful in our county. And it does mirror Alameda's vibe a little bit because there are definitely a lot of preserved Victorian buildings that harken back to the early days of settling here. So what you keep is just that, right? It's a real functioning downtown with some nightlife, in fact. At Petaluma's bars and restaurants stay open past 9 p.m. There's a brewery, Energy, in Petaluma that's very cool. As I said, the best preserved Victorians, I think, in some of the county. There's some in Healdsburg and certainly in Sonoma, but Petaluma has a lot of Victorian character downtown and in the neighborhoods that are really close to it. And you keep a local economy that's actually real and vibrant. Petaluma has a really strong local economy, and so you get to benefit from that, right? Especially if you're not coming up here to retire and you want a job in town. It's not a bedroom community at all. And some other towns in our county can really feel that way, and Petaluma is not. Of course, even though the commute is possible from Petaluma, it's gonna be longer. So if you do need to get into the city from Petaluma, it's the best place you can find in Sonoma County to do so because it's the closest town. And you could certainly choose to drive or to get to Larkspur and take that ferry, but it's a longer trip than Alameda. Let's be real. But if the commute isn't a big part of your calculus here, then what you do get in Petaluma in spades, right? Room to grow. I mean, Alameda's an island. It's bordered by water. It can't grow, and it's a fixed entity, right? And in Petaluma, there's a lot of space. You have the downtown neighborhoods that are more dense, but there's a lot of variety in terms of housing and Arab construction all around the downtown area in Petaluma. So there's a lot of different lifestyles to choose from. And then in the outskirts, you have access to open land. There's pasture land and big lots, farmhouses, you name it. Petaluma offers housing in every category and at really every price point. And the identity is different too, right? Petaluma is the sort of agricultural and especially dairy capital of our county. And that energy is really felt when you're walking around downtown. The murals, the art downtown all reflect this identity. And it's not something you're gonna have in Alameda. It's gonna feel really different to be part of this community. As I said, this one's maybe a little bit more of a stretch, but I think if you wanna keep Alameda's sort of charming Victorian character and sweet downtown, but you want space to spread out and to have access to the outdoors without having to cross a bridge, Petaluma is a good move for you. So which one's for you? Or do you have another town you're considering moving to in Sonoma County? Well, drop a note in the comments or DM me and let me know what you're thinking of doing. I'm Stephanie Johnson. I'm your Real Wise agent here in Sonoma County, and I would love to be your guide. Give me a call, send me a DM, book a calendar appointment with me, and let's talk about your move. I would love to help you be successful on your purchase and relocation to Sonoma County. Until the next one, bye for now.